Hello everyone, how's it going? In today's video we will see the sculpting and painting process of this, let's say, Seaman first class of Imperial Japanese Navy, which is the second figure to play a part on my friend's diorama. So stick in and enjoy this scratch build process. Starting from the wire armature, I use 1.8 mm as the cranial unit, the same length as I used in the figure in the previous video. After adding the clay layers, the figure should have around 2.3 cm high, which is something like 1.65 meters tall. The armature is composed by steel wire and a twisted copper wire around the legs. I made the same mistake as the previous one, leaving the copper wire for holding it, which is proved to be a big mistake. But well, I made them both in the same moment, so lessons learned for good now. Anyway, the position I wanted was to give the impression of a guy taking care of the punishment given to the first guy who is cleaning the ship's deck. So the figure will have a standing position, with a left hand resting on his lower back and the right hand pointing some dirt spot left by the cleaning guy. The first layer was Tamiya putty on the feet, torso and the right hand. I made only the right hand with putty and left the left hand to be made with clay, as it will be touching the guy's back and it should be easier to give a more natural look. After the putty is hardened, I use a metal file to refine the hand's appearance, making the pointing figure thinner. It still looks too big, but after adding clay to the armature, it won't look so odd. Firstly, I tried to make the boots with clay, but after some handling, the holding copper wires just didn't make it. So I decided to make the boots just like the hand, with a first layer of Tamiya putty and then with some metal file sanding. This is definitely an excellent solution instead of handling the figure with extra care to don't mess with the clay details. After I was satisfied with the result, I started to build volume to the armature, gluing the first layer of clay with super glue and then adding overlapping layers of clay until I reached the desired thickness. To give a smoother surface to the clay, I use a dry and soft brush, gently passing it over the figure. Just be careful when doing it to not apply too much strength in each brush stroke to avoid ripping the clay off. Now the funniest part. I started to give shape and details on the pants, making the pants folding line and some wrinkles here and there. As the fit was already hardened, it was easier to make the pants folding over the boots. Moving to the upper part. First thing was to add clay around the waist and gently pressing it downwards to simulate the shirt's bottom. Following some reference pictures, I saw that some on-duty seamen wear a belt with pouches and a bayonet strap. So I added a strip of clay around the waist, trying to make it with edges and lines as sharp as possible, which is actually really hard. I added a small clay noodle to the belt front to make the buckle, which was even harder than the belt itself. The bayonet and its strap was also done by adding small clay stripes, overlaying them to create its volume and appearance of separate objects. The result was not as sharp as I was expecting, but I guess it was okay. Then I made some wrinkles on the shirt by adding small pieces of clay in areas and pressing the tool in others to create more pronounced wrinkles and give the figure a more three-dimensional appearance. This is probably not realistic for this scale, especially when you see and compare scanned and printed figures. However, for painting purpose and to make the figure more eye-catching, I think it's a valid point to sacrifice scale accuracy in this situation. Okay, back to the sculpting. I added a pouch on the waist back and then started to add clothes details around the neck. I decided to move to the arms before finishing the neck, for handling purpose. I glued the first layer of clay and then started the left hand, that is resting on the lower back. As this hand will be in contact with the shirt, making it with clay was not a bad decision. In fact, it actually helped to give a more natural look. As this hand is touching the figure's back, it was easier to work the clay, carving the fingers and shaping the closed hand. All small details were made by adding tiny pieces of clay, like balls, noodles and stripes, and working its shape on place. Okay, time to save all the effort put in the figure so far. I brushed isopropyl alcohol over to smooth the surface and bake it in the oven. Now the head. First goal is to reach the overall proportions. After some measurements, I started the facial features by the nose and the eyes, then moved to the chin and mouth. As this guy will be complaining about the bad deck cleaning, to not say worse, I want to make him with an open mouth, so I cut it with the hobby blade and gently force it downwards to keep the mouth open. The ears were made with a small ball of clay placed on the head sides, slightly below the eyes line. Then I basically press the tool in its center and adjust the overall shapes. The cap was the last detail to be added, first marking the ribbon band around the forehead and then filling the top of the head with more clay to build the volume, controlling its shape with the sculpting tool. The last step was to bake the figure once again and it's ready for painting. First I primed it with black and then a zenithal painting with deck tan. I tried the glazing method first with vallejo acrylics, but it just didn't work for this white uniform. So I decided to make things a little bit different from the usual acrylic painting. I applied a mix of burnt umber and dark grey wash to intensify the shadows again, and moved to dry brushing technique with oil paints that I prior set on a cardboard to absorb most of the oil. After that, I use again a pin wash to build contrast and move to painting the color details. The belt, pouch and bayonet strap were painted with dark earth tones, highlighting the edge with German camouflage pale brown from Vallejo. Skin tones were painted starting from burnt umber to cast some shadows, then moving to medium flesh tone to give a tan look, and finally highlighting it with off-white in small areas, more exposed to light, such as the nose and cheeks. Well, time to paint some rank ribbons. As this guy has a higher rank than the punished one, I painted some good conduct chevrons and insignia on the right sleeve. First a layer of clear varnish to protect the underlayer colors, followed by the overall shape in black, sharpening the edges, gently scraping it with a pin, and then the yellow inside. And here is the final result. I like the overall look. However, I think the figure from the previous video got a little better finished. Taking a closer look at this one, I can see that the surface didn't get as smooth as I expected. So in the next time I will try other product than isopropyl alcohol to smooth the clay surface prior to baking. As I said before, these two figures were made for my fellow modder to add to his diorama. And here's the result. There are still a lot of room for improvement, like the boots and hands especially, but I still like how they both fit on the diorama. By the way, I am leaving the link to my friend's website, where you can find a lot of articles and modeling tips, besides, of course, great models. So I hope you like this figure sculpting side project. Hit the like button if you do, and subscribe if you still haven't. Your support is a priceless moral boost for me. Thanks for watching.